It's working, yeah. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. For Cambio Center, it's a pleasure to have you here to hear us. Yes, to hear us. We are student fellows from Cambio Center, and we want to share some of the findings and part of the research projects and work that we are developing right now. So thank you for listening to us. Today we have an amazing co-host and friend. This is Alejandra Gudiño, who is gonna be helping us with timing and presenting us. Thank you. So we will have 15 minutes for each participant to share their presentation. And then at the end, we have 15 more minutes for questions and answers. And yeah, so if you have questions, just feel free to post it on the chat. Okay, so Alejandra, we are yours.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the Cambio Researcher Students panel. It is my pleasure to be here, and my dog is welcome you as well because he needs to bark when I'm talking. I'm so sorry about that. He has ideas. We are very excited to present the research of the student fellows, and I'm thinking the first presentation will be in charge will be Heather Lindfors-Navarro. She is a PhD student in learning, teaching, and curriculum development with emphasis in mathematics education. And her presentation is titled Responsive Teaching and Caring in Elementary Mathematics. If you have questions, please use the chat, and we will do our best to follow and to honor the time for Heather to give you some answers.
Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead. My wonderful. Okay. A little bit of a technical difficulty here. There we go. Okay, so thank you for that introduction. And as the evolution of research, as always, I've actually changed what's going on, including my title, because of just new things that I'm learning. So again, my name is Heather Lindfors-Navarro, and I want to thank the Cambio Center for allowing me this opportunity to share my research. I am a third-year doctoral student in the Department of Learning, Teaching, Curriculum, specifically math education. And so I'm going to share a little bit about a pilot study I'm conducting, and I describe it as the geography of caring, responding to children's mathematical thinking. So the data from my study came from a larger project that focused on supporting teachers' development and being responsive to children's fractional thinking by helping teachers organize and use what they see and what they hear when children are solving problems. And it's known as RTEM, or responsive teaching in elementary mathematics. So this work centers the child and their thinking as the starting point for mathematics instruction and learning. And responsive teaching requires complex in-the-moment expertise of children in mathematics. So to give you a little bit of clarity around the terms that I'm going to be using. So responsive teaching, or what I'm going to be using as a term responsive, means taking up children's mathematical ideas and pursuing those ideas via skillful questioning in the moment. So the other major aspect of my research is caring. So in order to understand the geography of caring, I want to begin by that term that I'm going to be using, and specifically within the context of elementary mathematics classrooms. So I'm working from Nell Notting's theory of ethics of care and the subsequent adaptations of that within mathematics education by Amy Hackenberg, Dan Beatty, and more largely, Angela Valenzuela. So for me, I'm going to tell you what I think caring is, why it's important, and how does it show up. So specifically, for me, caring is a dynamic relational endeavor that centers the needs of the student, what we're going to call the cared for, by the teacher or the carer. So why is this important? So I believe by attending to this particular relational dimension in classrooms, like caring, we can begin to account for social aspects of mathematics classrooms that are influenced by stereotypes and perceptions of students that can be based on race, class, or gender. And by explicitly attending to this particular domain of interactions, this affective domain of interactions within a math class, you can begin to recognize that relational moments can be mathematical in nature. And then lastly, sorry, let's go back here. How I see caring showing up in this work is that it shows up via the negotiation between the mathematics and the accompanying artifacts and ideas produced. In particular, for this pilot study, through a student's work, like their models and their representations. Okay, so the data I have comes from that larger research project. I've chosen to focus on one teacher, and that is characterized as highly responsive to children's mathematical thinking. And there's a potential to consider 14 teachers in all. So for that one teacher, I have reviewed 6 observations, video observations that take place during a fraction math lesson. And they take place as the teacher circulates as children work on a story problem. So it's an authentic classroom setting that's actually responding to, in the moment, children's thinking. And then I also have this accompanying student work that I've been looking at. So my research question is, how do elementary teachers who are responsive to children's mathematical thinking create a geography of caring and one-on-one problem-solving interactions? And from that, I have some sub-analytical questions. The first being, how do caring interactions relate to being responsive to children's mathematical thinking? Next, how does a teacher and student's physical positioning, along with other forms of discourse, indicate a caring mathematical interaction? And the focus for this pilot study is this last one. How does the student's work mediate this geography between teacher and student? So this is where it gets exciting for me. Because again, it's something that I'm just currently engaged in. I'm learning new things every day. So the particular question, how does the student's work mediate this geography of caring between teacher and student? So for this qualitative case study, I used multimodal semionic discourse analysis, in the sense to say that multimodal, so what that is I'm taking into consideration multiple forms of communication that's conveyed through gestures, facial expressions, language, speech, both written and verbal, and then artifacts. So a recent realization that I've had, this is what I'm really excited about, is that teachers who are responsive to children's mathematical thinking are engaging or spontaneously engaging in a strategy that's often used in art education. Within art education, it's called visual thinking strategy, or VST. And it's this, within art education, it's used to build visual literacy, language skills, and critical thinking with art. So this particular strategy has been used in the art world with great success for over 30 years. So for me, in the context of a study, the students' work is their artwork. So art making, I believe, is how children make sense of the world. And it's a way to deepen what they want to say and their ideas and express their ideas when sometimes words isn't enough. And children's mathematical representations are children's art making in mathematics. So children in this study are basically given a blank sheet of paper, and they're encouraged to use it to represent their own original thinking. the teachers don't tell them that this is a particular way that you need to represent this. And so the teachers don't have this predicted picture in their minds that they can compare it to say like, oh, this is right or this is wrong. So the children have the opportunity to express their original thoughts and processes, and the teachers have the opportunity to be responsive in the moment to these unique expressions of children's thinking. So it's a really complex skill that these teachers are demonstrating. And so here what you see is a picture of a child's work. You'll notice that, okay, so the story is 9 friends went to share 12 small cakes, and they have little smiley faces on them. They even have names on them. So you see that the child is attending to this idea that it's really important that they communicate that they're sharing amongst friends. So some of my initial analyses are that children's representations and the models of their math thinking provide this anchor for negotiating a caring, responsive interaction. It's this establishes this landmark that each of them can both go back to and refer to. And it's this tether for the joint work between teacher and student as they explore the mathematics and they develop their caring relationship. So some of the things that you see, and even in this quick snapshot, and some of the things that are associated with this particular strategy is pointing. So pointing can enrich, it helps support enrichment as another way of understanding through linking the verbal descriptions to the actual things themselves. It's another way of reiterating. It's a way of saying that I understood what you said through gestures, and it helps keep both participants, in this case, teacher and student, focused on the conversation. Something else that I found that teachers did is paraphrasing or transliterating. So this is a reflective process that takes into account everything that the child has said and only what they say, and their work in front of them. So this shows that caring, because listening that deeply is hard, and earnest listening is a way to show respect, and it's a way to show that you care. It's an opportunity to show that a teacher is restraining from imposing their point of view. And this restraint from being corrective or dominating the interaction is a way of showing respect and care. You're respecting them, the student, through paraphrasing via validating their ideas. And so it's just really exciting to see that these teachers are engaging in a particular manner of a strategy that's been found to be useful in art. And I think it's fascinating that they're doing this spontaneously as something intuitive to be responsive to children. So in summary, at this point in my research, I think that by connecting to the internal pictures and dramas that our children are imagining during problem solving and using their models and representations, we foster this caring relationship, and it centers the children and their thinking. And that since these imaginings are inherently unique to their experiences and cultural lives, this expands the possibilities for teachers to understand diverse realities. So just this one piece, this student work is allowing this, or providing this anchor that both the teacher and the student can come back to and negotiate this caring relationship. So I'm excited to see what comes up with the other teachers. This last little bit of work, and something that you can see through the students' work, is, again, you see all the little smiling faces, all the friends have names, and there's different things that you can learn from the child's work and what their priorities are and their values. You see that they value friendship and the importance of sharing. And so it provides us another way to consider student work as something that's very serious for children, and an opportunity for teachers to kind of refine their teaching and focus on. So here's some of my references. I can put them there. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share.
Wonderful. And you only use 11 of your 15 minutes.
Wow, it's amazing.
I know, very impressive. I wonder if you want to handle a couple questions, maybe a couple comments. If you would like to either type on the chat or unmute your microphone and speak directly to the rest of the group.
Yeah, I saw that somebody asked what grade. So this is in 3rd grade, so elementary classrooms. Sample demographics of the children. So right now, well, Avelina, can you tell me a little bit more, like, you want to know the particular demographics of what children I'm observing?
Yeah, the 3rd graders, like their race, ethnicity.
So the classrooms are really diverse, and it just depends on the classroom right now. So for the 6 students that I'm observing, it's, I believe there's 2 interactions with girls, 4 boys, 1 African-American, 1 white student, and then 4 Latinos.
So could you tell us why you're observing only 6 students in a survey class? Is it because you chose those 6 students? I'm guessing that the class doesn't have 6 students.
Right, so this is just the initial pilot study to see what's going on. And I chose the classroom. It's 1 teacher out of a larger data set that we have characterized as being highly responsive to children's mathematical thinking. And by observing this particular teacher, I noticed that there was just something else going on that I couldn't quite articulate. And I came to characterize it as caring. And so I wanted to know more about what was going on in that classroom. And I've just begun with 6 students. And during the circulating phase, there's also a whole group discussion that happens within the classroom. It's a whole lesson. It takes probably about an hour, a little over an hour. So it's just like kind of dipping my toe in the water at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question. What are your hopes at the end of your research? What do you hope you can help other people understand about your research and the way mathematics can be, can be explained, or it can be presented to other peoples in the, as they teach, as a model, as I don't know, what are your hopes?
So I come from a background of teaching for almost 18 years. And so my hopes are to support teachers in some way to understand how to build caring relationships with students through mathematics. And so really kind of giving some frameworks for how do we do this in the classroom? What does it look like? And what does it mean to be caring in a mathematics context? And so to understand that better, I'm observing these teachers to see, well, what is happening and how is that negotiated? And so it's really to inform and support teachers to do this in their classrooms.
Thank you.
This is Corinne. I was trying to figure out, how do you figure out the learning outcomes of your students using that approach? I think that what you're presenting is awesome, and understanding geography as well. I'm just trying to imagine that in a classroom of 18 students or 20, and how easy or difficult or challenging, or what are the characteristics of people that can make in actually the training tools that can be established for teachers to make something like this feasible.
Right. So this particular data comes from, it's a subset of a larger project that was geared towards providing professional development towards teachers. So it was a 3-year longitudinal study that provided this professional development for teachers to engage in these practices. And so this data comes from the lesson observations of these teachers as they apply their learning opportunities. And so it's more of a consideration of how to possibly extend those professional development opportunities. And within that longitudinal study, there's data that's been collected from both teachers and students about their knowledge about the mathematics before and after the PD. And so that's still coming in right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have time for one more question or comment.
And I should say that the data shows a lot of promise that responding to children in this manner does support learning for both teachers and students. So it's exciting to see that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Can't wait to see what the end of your research show to the rest of us, especially because mathematics can be such a tremendous undertake for some of us. So I wish you had this research done when my children were little. That would be so helpful. Thank you so much. All right. I think we are ready for a second presentation. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Avelina Rivero, who is a PhD student in Human Developmental and Family Science. And the title of her research is Examining the Role of Family Influences on Latinas Body Image.
Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. Ooh. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Avelina Rivero, and I would like to start by thanking Dr. Klein and Dr. Kaloran for their help and support on this project. The title to our project is Examining the Role of Negative Eating and Weight Messages from Family Members on Latinas Body Image Shame. So body image shame has been linked to eating disorders, mental health concerns, and overall adjustment issues in adolescents and young women. Body image shame is conceptualized in two ways, internalized and externalized. Internalized body image shame occurs when an individual participates in self-degrading evaluations, e.g., I choose clothes that hide parts of my body that I consider ugly or disproportional. While externalized body image shame occurs when an individual is insecure about their appearance and assumes that their appearance will be subject to criticism by their peers and thus avoids any type of social situation, e.g., I feel uncomfortable in social situations because I feel that people may criticize me because of my body shape. Body image concerns can be shaped by family members and the family environment. Researchers have found that negative appearance-related messages from family members has been associated with body dissatisfaction, unhealthy weight control behaviors, and depressive symptoms in young women. A majority of the research has primarily been focusing on the influence mothers and sisters have on young women's body image outcomes, and less focus has been made on fathers. Western society's unrealistic beauty norms, e.g. the thin ideal, may put young women at risk for experiencing body image concerns and may strengthen associations between negative eating and weight messages from family members and Latinas body image shame. Our project had three goals. The first goal is to examine the effects of negative eating and weight messages from fathers, mothers, and sisters on Latinas' internalized body image shame. The second goal was to examine the effects of negative eating and weight messages from fathers, mothers, and sisters on Latinas' externalized body image shame. And the last goal was to examine the moderating role of Latinas' internalized sociocultural attitudes towards appearance, i.e. acceptance of US beauty standards on the associations between negative eating and weight messages from fathers, mothers, and sisters, and Latinas' internalized and externalized body image shame. So the data that we used from this project came from a larger project called the All Bodies Project, which is a study aimed at identifying the ways in which family members influence young women's body image outcomes. The data consisted of 195 Latina Hispanic young adults with a mean age of 23.24. A majority of them, 67.4%, reported that they were Mexican, Mexican American, Chicana. They were also required to report on their perception of their weight, with 7.7% reporting that they are smaller than they want to be, 70.8% reporting that they are just the way they want to be, and 21.5% reporting that they were bigger than they want to be. They were also required to report on their parents' place of birth, with 69.5% of fathers and 73.2% of mothers born in the US. They were also required to have a sister who was either 4 years younger or 4 years older than them. The measures that we used for our project was an adapted version of the parental eating weight messages scale from Gross and Nelson, the body image shame scale from Duarte, and the sociocultural attitudes towards appearance questionnaire from Heinberg. For our project, we conducted 2 separate hierarchical linear regression analyses, one for internalized and one for externalized body image shame. Prior to conducting the analyses, we ran psychometric analyses to make sure that the measures were appropriate for our sample, and the Cronbach alphas all were above 0.86. Overall, what we found were that perceptions of weight, internalized sociocultural attitudes, and messages from fathers were all positively associated with more internalized and externalized body image shame. So what this means is more negative eating and weight messages are associated with more internalized and externalized body image shame. Higher levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes are associated with more internalized and externalized body image shame. And lastly, perceptions of weight are also associated with more internalized and externalized body image shame. We also found 2 significant interaction effects, and we used simple slope analyses to further examine these. I would like to start with mothers. So we found that with mothers, low levels, so when individuals reported low levels but not high levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes, negative eating weight messages associations were strengthened, so higher externalized body image shame. And with sisters, it was when participants reported high but not low levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes, the associations between negative eating weight messages from sisters were associated with more externalized body image shame. So ultimately, our findings provide evidence that our fathers play an important role over and above the roles of mothers and sisters on forming Latinas' body image shame, and future research may benefit from focusing on fathers. Additionally, attitudes change the associations between mothers and sisters' negative messages and Latinas' externalized body image shame. Given the emphasis on the thin ideal in Western cultures, examining how these findings may also differ based on acculturation to the US is important. Overall, what we found was that family members' negative eating and weight messages were associated with young women's body shame, and thus it is important for practitioners working with families to emphasize the harmful effects of these messages and give families strategies for helping their daughters form positive views of their body. And that is all I have.
Record time. You have done. So we will take some questions. And if you feel comfortable about unmuting your mic and addressing it directly. Yes.
Could I request that you maybe go back and show the interaction slide one more time and just talk through those a little bit more? And I apologize if you could maybe restate kind of the acronym of that main measure you used, what that was, and just kind of remind us of the details of that. That would be helpful, I think.
And you want me to talk about the moderator, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the moderator is the internalized sociocultural attitudes towards appearance. So that really means that young women's level of agreement with societal standards of beauty, specifically focusing on US Western beauty ideals. And what we found was that for mothers, it was only when they reported low levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes that the relationship strengthened between the negative eating and weight messages from mothers and externalized body image shame. And with sisters, it was only under high levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes. So that's when the young woman reported high levels of internalized sociocultural attitudes that the relationship between the messages from sisters and the externalized body image shame strengthened. So it's this one. And for mothers, it's the low levels. So it's important to note that both messages are important. However, with mothers, it was only under low conditions that it caused the externalized body image shame to increase. But with sisters, it was at high levels. So clearly mothers' messages are kind of more salient to young women than sisters. I hope that answers your question.
So just one clarifying question then. So the SATA measure represents like their kind of internalized perception of self in relation to Western standards?
So, okay, so the internalized sociocultural attitudes is really the idea of their level agreement with Western society standards of beauty. So the higher, that means that they are agreeing or internalize the US Western beauty standards more.
So if they're like really associating with that at a high level, then their mother's messaging doesn't matter so much?
So it still matters because we did find that it was associated with externalized body image shame, but we did not find it with internalized body image shame. However, we did find with fathers that there was no significant interaction effect, but we found that with fathers, there was an association between fathers' messages and both internalized and externalized body image shame. So fathers' messages, whether or not they internalize sociocultural attitudes, it's not important. Their messages matter and are more impactful than mothers and sisters. That's a great question. Yeah.
Thanks.
Could you speak a little bit more about your sample? So I saw that you use the Amazon tracking, mechanical Turk. So you say 67% are Mexican American. Are they from all over the country? Are they from a specific part of the US? Do you find it representative of the country or just a specific geographical area?
That's a really great question. So with Amazon Mechanical Turk, you can, by asking them their location, you can see where they're at. However, we didn't really focus on whether or not they were like from Arizona or California or New York. We just required that they were, they identified as Latina or Hispanic, and if they had a sister and their parents' information.
So you don't have the information of where they are from? Or you
I do have the information. Oh, go ahead.
Or you do, but you didn't use it. I was just wondering whether you can say that this is representative from Latinos, Hispanic people from the US. So that's my question.
It's a great question, and it's kind of hard and a challenge with using Amazon Mechanical Turk, because really it's whoever is participating and working for them that wants to fill out this survey. So generalizability may not all be there just because it's using Amazon Mechanical Turk, if that makes any sense.
So I have another question about the messaging, the shame messaging. Do you have examples of the messaging that were asked in the survey, or you just ask about whether people receive shaming weight messages, or did they have to say something about the type of messages?
So we actually use the body image, the parental eating weight messages scale, and I included like some examples here. Actually, I did not include, that's something I probably should have included. I can provide an example, hold on. That's a great question, I should have provided that. Okay. So, hold on, I'm sorry. But ultimately, participants were required to, hold on, sorry. They were asked to see whether or not they were asked, for example, did you ever hear your parents saying, or your sister saying, you need to lose weight? You look like you've gained weight. How much do you weigh? Those kind of things. And participants were asked from a scale 1 to 5, 1 being always and 5 being never. And we reverse coded the items that we use from the scale.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, and maybe you already gave the answer when you were talking of the nature of the database that you are using. So I wonder if some of your participants are recent immigrants to the United States, or they're being here long enough, because I think that may have something to do with the way you body shame and who you consider to be important.
That's actually a great question. So we did ask for that information. However, I did not include it on the slide. And we also asked when their parents came to the US as well, and whether or not their parents were born in the US. But I don't have that information on hand.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great question, because acculturation does influence body image outcomes.
Yes.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. We have time for one more question at least, or a comment. So this is Corinne. You mentioned Cronbach alpha. That means that you're creating indexes from a set of questions. Is that correct for each one of your indices?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
No, I was trying to figure out, because you just mentioned one of the questions. Are these indices a set of questions that people answer in a scale from very little? And so how many questions are there for each one of those, internalize and externalize? And did you add, for example, other variables into your analysis, or it was basically those variables along with other?
Okay, those are great questions. So for the scales, we used an adaptation for the parental eating weight messages, because we incorporated sisters, and I believe it was a 10-item scale. And for the other one, for the sociocultural attitudes towards appearance, we only utilized the subscale of the internalized, because we were really interested in examining whether or not Latinas internalize these type of beliefs. And for the body image shame scale, we used both the internalized and externalized body image scale. For covariates, we used year in college and their perception of their weight. So whether or not they were dissatisfied with their appearance. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. It would be interesting if you could, as Alejandra mentioned, look at the time that the parents have been in the state, or if they were born in the state, is another factor. Your presentation reminds me of my childhood, so it's really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think on a personal note, my question was related to, I am a first-generation immigrant to the country, and I have 2 daughters, and the difference in age between the 10 years, and is very fascinated to see their relationship to their body, to their weight, to the way they go about it. They're very, very, very profoundly different. And many times I wonder, and it has to do with the fact that there are 10 years between them. And so my perception, my way that I have acculturized to this society, and the perception of what is expected in this particular community that we live on has changed as well. And I just pass that to them. And I guess that's where my question came from.
Yeah, I know that I found this article that talked about that when Latinas immigrated to the US before 16 years old, they were more likely to select a thinner body type for their ideal body. However, when Latinas came to the US after the age of 17, they selected curvier body types. So truly, it has to do with the age that they come to the US that they start to internalize these type of beliefs, as well as other social factors like peers and even brothers to influence young women's body image outcomes. Yeah.
How lovely. Thank you very much. We can't wait to see where the rest of your research will bring to us, and how can we incorporate this in the way that we have our own expectations and the expectations to the young people that we have close to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think now we have our last presentation of this panel, and that is Andrés Mesa, who is a PhD student in rural sociology. And his presentation is titled Production of Andean Blueberries in Colombia, Sharing Experiences to Structure Supplies Change Frame on Agroecology.
Thank you, Alejandra. Let me share my screen first. Yeah. All right, so is it working? I think so.
We see all your slides. You may
Okay.
want to double click on the big screen again.
Okay.
There.
All right, so today I'm here to share some of my findings for my current research project that is part of my dissertation topic. Thanks to the help of Professor Mary Harrison and Professor Jerry Giles, that are my advisors. This is the a reflection about the situation of the production of a berry, the Andean blueberry in Colombia, and just thinking about how it is possible to build a supply chain framed on agroecological principles. And for that reasons, I want to start telling you a little bit more about what is the Andean blueberry. Andean blueberry is part of the family of some of the berries that are famous here in the USA, like the cranberries, the blueberries, etc. The Andean blueberry is a shrub that grows spontaneously in the Andean areas of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. So right now it's a little bit trendy because there's a lot of research, and they have found that this berry has a lot of nutritional and health benefits. Is very adaptive to the condition of that plants, and it can be considered as an organic crop. For this reason, so many people say that it has a lot of potential for explore more about its consumption, and some people even think about these fruits in terms of exportation. So, however, this plant has only 2 harvest peaks per year and is collected manually by small farmers who consider it only as a productive alternative. Also, producers face difficulties to sell this product because of the lack of access to markets and consumers. For this reason, they depend on intermediaries for commercialization and price fixing. And there's no unstructured supply chain with the actors and stages on all the critical points well identified. So, what are the situation of supply chains in Colombia right now? Historically, the Global South has assigned the use of their lands to the production of food and goods to satisfy the demands of the global market. Colombia, at this moment, is no exception. In this country, supply chains are structured through general guidelines designed by the national government with the participation of the most powerful actors in the food systems in Colombia. So for these reasons, these guidelines are oriented towards monoculture systems that hinder the participation of small producers, increases the potential for abuse by unbalancing power relations, and do not consider alternative models. So, agroecology, as a conceptual framework, seeks to apply ecological concepts and principles to the design and management of sustainable agroecosystems. This framework offers the possibility of meeting economic, environmental, and social needs by providing a multifunctional and multidisciplinary approach to farming. So, as a social movement, agroecology must struggle against the impossibility of local communities to live outside those big systems like the neoliberal system and the dispossession of their material assets, and one of the most important things, their knowledge about how to manage their products, their crops, etc. So, based on the purpose of contrasting the guidelines provided by the Colombian regulations regarding supply chain, the information that is right now available on Andean Blueberry in Colombia, and the voice of some actors involved in producing and researching this fruit in one of the most productive areas in the country, which is Antioquia. I would like to, or I look for answering the question, what factors inherent to the production of Andean blueberry is in this department in this area of Colombia can be assessed to propose alternative supply chains framed in the principles of the agroecology as a social movement. So for that purpose, I developed my methodology in 2 steps. First, I conducted a systematic map to know more about what is right now happening in Colombia about Andean blueberry. What is the focus of the research that is conducted right now there? And by this way, I try to understand the particularities and difficulties of this productive process. So then I interview so far 7 actors of the supply chain, of people who research on the product, who produce it, who market it, etc. I conducted semi-structured interviews with researchers and these people in order to hear their voices and know more about their experience producing and working with this berry. As a result of this study, I reflect on the potentialities and limitations that this product and these people involved in this process have in order to structure in the future a sustainable and collaborative supply chain that is adjusted to their possibilities and is resistant to the prevailing corporate food regime. So the first step, the systematic map, showed me that the main areas of research and the priorities regarding Andean blueberry in the country are focused in knowing about the characterization, the chemicals, and all these substances that are in the product and that are related with health benefits. And obviously there is evident that there's no studies focused on knowing more about the realities and the context of the producers and what are the motivations of researchers to work with these fruits. So with this, it's clear that the academic production concerning to Andean blueberry in Colombia is aligned with the initiatives that seek to generate knowledge in order to industrialize fruit production. However, there are no chain approaches to determine specifically the stages and the critical points according to the realities of these fruits. So, for these reasons, more mechanisms must be generated to listen to the voice of the actors in this process and scale their initiatives to structure productive chains contextualized to the realities. And here is where agroecological approaches have a place to find solutions and build supply chains from below. This mapping also helped me to identify the main researchers and producers in this area in order to interview them, so I could hear their voices and know about their experiences. So as a result of these interviews, I could assess the possibilities in this Colombian region. I used a production chain approach. This approach identifies the strengths and key points to improve in each stage of a supply chain. So the analysis for this case is framed with agroecological principles. So I could find, for example, that that in the production stage, Andean Blueberry has advantages regarding its adaptability and pest management when compared to industrialized fruit production models. However, there is a dilemma: what to do? Improve the access to technology or continue taking advantage of the wild nature of this fruit? In this way, the dependency on agrochemicals is avoided and also enter into the neoliberal production logics. In the next stage, for the processing stage, I found that agro-industry in the country presents major problems associated with low technological levels, poor infrastructure for agro-industrial processing, and low levels of association and marketing. By this way, some authors recommend that small farmers must associate to have access to technology and improve, for example, conservation methods for the product. Food safety there is a challenge for producers who want to transform the product and sell it. The challenge is to ensure that the knowledge and the traditional practices to transform this fruit lose their validity because of the need of meeting food safety standards in order to exportation, for example. So it is necessary that these practices are coordinated with the involved actors to fit food safety practices and standards to their realities. Distribution and marketing stage is also, when I asked about this stage, participants commented that this is their main problem because the lack of marketing channels, they have to find intermediaries who buy the product. In that way, studies affirm also that associativity is crucial to achieve sustainable rural innovation processes and strengthen the competitiveness. So finally, for the consumption, there is a dilemma in the promotion of this Andean Blueberry because there is a risk, for example, that modernization will turn this crop into a commercial crop. In that way, this is another alternative. What if we conserve, or what if we keep the image of an artisan and organic crop carried out by small producers in order to defend food sovereignty? The case of quinoa, for example, is a very common example. Quinoa has been a traditional crop in the south of the country, but right now the production of this product is just for exportation. So as a result, in Colombia, we don't have a real consumption of quinoa. So this alternative will be necessary to define standards of green, of organic agriculture, strengthen associativity, training, and empower actors in the commercialization process, as well as facilitate negotiation channels. So to conclude, it can be said that Andean Blueberry is a crop with a lot of potential to be produced within agroecological principles. The problem is because Colombian regulations regarding this fruit are aimed to meet the global market demand. It prevents the participation of small producers and alternative production models. Agroecology as a social movement, by considering social capital and listening to the voice of several actors, can provide guidelines to structure this alternative supply chain. But we need to think about the redistribution of power relations in these chains. So producers of this crop need more technical assistance and training to transform, preserve the product under food safety regulations and marketing requirements, but they must, or this is necessary to adapt their possibilities and not transfer the same patterns, the same models from other industrial supply chains as banana, coffee, or other crops. So finally, it's necessary to implement agreements and alliances between actors at each stage of this supply chain to support sustainable development process, which must be built on social capital, and where the different stages contribute to generate synergies, reducing transaction costs, and increasing profitability for everyone. So thank you so much. And so if you want to ask me something, so go ahead. Thank you.
Questions?
So I have a question. This is Corinne again. Blueberries or acai are actually becoming a very important fruit in many urban centers, for example, Lima. And the question that I have is regarding the research that you've done is, for how long have farmers in Colombia been engaged in this activity? Is this one of the many activities that farmers are engaged in these particular contexts? And are there consumers in Colombia that appreciate this? Because normally you have to create niche markets and reduce transaction costs of information and negotiation. And so if you're thinking about a different way for development other than being a commodity crop, but being really a product, what are the potentials for doing that within the country?
Yes, thank you so much for your question, Professor. Yes, it has been a traditional crop. It's being known like a weed, is something that people didn't want in their farms before, because for them it was something like an invasive plant and competed for nutrients for other crops. So, but in the recent years, the research has done that people know more about this fruit and their health and their benefits for health. So right now there is like a niche, especially in urban centers, of people who wants to be healthy and prevent diseases, etc. So for this reason, this product is considered like a trendy and it's expensive, even if, because there's a huge gap between producers and consumers. So who is winning there? Just the intermediaries. They have the work who go to every farm and collect the production of several farmers. But for them, this is not the main income for in their lands, because they are always producing other things. They see that like an alternative, but they want to have fair access to or maybe a direct access to people, because consumers are requiring more, but they don't know what to do. They try to sell this product in a local market or whatever, but there's no like marketing channels for this commercialization process. So is this clear or?
Yes, it is. So somebody else is doing the job of trying to do that marketing.
Exactly.
So those are the marketing costs.
Yes.
Okay. And the other question that I have relates back to the idea of working in groups or cooperatives. What is the history of farmers in the region of having worked or organized collectively in the past?
Yes, I found several in this region. Several cooperatives of people who have been like historically working, but especially producing milk and dairy products and some vegetables, that because near to this area is the second largest urban center in the country, that is Medellin. So they are just focused on, and they associate in order to provide food to main city. They have this historic background in associativity, but regarding this product, there's no like any other or big example for considering.
Thank you.
Fine. Any other question? I have a question. Yes, Professor.
One question is possible to raise this species like a crop, and let me tell you why I want to know that. It's because there's a berry that's another member of the blueberry family that is the huckleberry. It's called a huckleberry. They've been trying to domesticate for over 50 years.
Yep.
They haven't been able to, and it has a distinct taste, and they've been able to develop markets for that. And so one of the things I wanted to know was is it possible to domesticate this? Because many varieties of blueberries are not domesticable. I don't know how to say it, but so in this case.
Yes, what I found in the systematic map, it was a lot of studies during the 90s, maybe 20 years ago, 20 something years ago, just trying first to identify the specific variety and breed of this crop, because before people knew this fruit just for like a traditional knowledge for the farmers, but it wasn't domesticated. Right now, there are some people that they are harvesting this product, and in some way it has been domesticated. But the reality for the whole, I think the main areas in the country where this fruit can grow is that this fruit, it hasn't been domesticated yet. Yeah, it's just only in some areas where some farmers have been able to domesticate it. But in the main context of the country, I don't know if in Ecuador or Peru or on the other regions where this fruit can be produced, have some progress with this process. But in Colombia specifically, there's just two regions, one close to Bogota, the capital city, and the other one is around Medellin, where they could identify a specific variety, and right now they know that the main harvesting peak production in a year are around April and May and October and November. So they know exactly what is the family and the breed of this seed, this fruit, sorry. But it has been a long process because at the beginning they didn't know exactly what are the agronomic characteristics of this seed. Is this clear?
Yeah, just follow up. You won't know this, so it's a question for you to look up. Are they truly domesticated, or do people go into the wild, find plants, and transplant them to fields?
They mainly do that. They transplant it, but and they can you can find some seeds in some local markets to have this product. Okay. But there's no like a real market for finding the seed as that. Is more like yes, they are transplanting and it's fast. It's easy. It's an easy propagation for process for this plant. So is part of the adaptability of this crop. But yes, you are right. It's mainly transplant. It's a transplanting process. more than there is you can find a seed or something to plant this crop in your lands if you want.
The reason I'm asking is because if you look at the case of the huckleberry, which is one that they can't domesticate, and the chokecherry in the northwest part of the United States, both of those, the fact that it can't be domesticated actually facilitated marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it became sort of symbolic of the culture and the region. And so that's why I was asking that question.
Oh, that's very good. I need to explore more about it, and thank you.
Yeah, because that's a real thing. Is it because if it can't be domesticated on any scale, that actually is a selling point, because it can be linked to the folklore and the traditions of a region.
Mm-hmm.
And the other question I had related to that is I don't know what the experience is in the Andes with another crop that's an elderberry, that's a native crop. I think it's called, in Peru and Bolivia, I think it's called sauco.
Sauco, yep.
I don't know if that can be cultivated or not, but I don't know if there would be anything useful for you from the experience to try to commercialize sauco.
Okay, so actually it's the same. Sauco, I think in Colombia is the same experience as Andean Blueberry. It's something that is known, or maybe some people have heard about it in the a cultural background or on the pop culture. People have heard about it, but there's no a productive or supply chain very well established. So actually, I think in Colombia, we import sauco from probably Ecuador or Peru, but I'm not sure about the production of sauco in Colombia as itself.
I think what I was suggesting is if the Peruvians or Ecuadorians have figured out how to commercialize it, it would be good to try to find out something about their experiences.
Good. Thank you, Professor, for the recommendation.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
All right. I want to thank you, everybody. I want to thank the three of you for wonderful presentations. We can wait to see what you do and how is the end of your research, what information brings to us. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. We are out of time. We will see you again on the next research presentations. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend and have happy holidays. Be safe and be warm. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.